Footballers cheating on and off the pitch is as old as the game itself, but rarely do you get a mea culpa quite like Kyle Walker's in The Sun. He's confessed to cheating on his wife Annie, opens up about how he's let her down and his children, and how he fathered 2 children with Lauren Goodman. He apologises, says so sorry in The Sun. He regrets the secret tot lies to his wife, and how he almost quit Manchester City to escape. And me and Charlie are here to talk about the football aspect of it, which is really remarkable in that while all this was going on, Kyle Walker's probably played some of the best football of his career.
I think it is the best football of his career. You know, remarkable. You know, over the last 6 months, we've been writing about how well he's playing for Manchester City. He's now captain of the club, so we've, you know, written about how he's taken on that role and matured on the pitch.
He even captained England during that time.
Captain England against Macedonia. So, you know, Gareth Southgate had full confidence that he'd represent his country on the pitch and played really well. Massively respected by his teammates on the pitch.
I've been talking quite a lot. I mean, we could barely stop him talking over the last year about how much he's enjoying his football, how well he's playing. I mean, it comes with being captain of Man City, I suppose. He feels a responsibility. But he never dodges a mix zone hardly now, does he?
He's certainly been speaking more than ever, and you know he's opened up about twice wanting to retire from the England team, and how Gareth Southgate managed to sort of talk him out of that. And ahead of him getting the captaincy at Manchester City, he was sort of pitching himself a bit, and certainly was making himself available more for our colleagues up in Manchester to talk after games. But yeah, on the pitch, he's played so well. Yeah, you know, he's arguably the best right back in Europe at the moment. He's certainly England's best right back now, and there's been a period where we've looked at, you know, whether it's Reece James or Kieran Trippier, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Kyle Walker. He's actually made that spot his own.
And still the fastest.
All this turmoil in his private life.
Still the fastest at the age of 33.
Still the quickest player at the World Cup, wasn't he?
Absolutely amazing. Now, I've just picked out a couple of quotes here in the Sun, in which he called Pep Guardiola unbelievable because he didn't know what was happening with Kyle off the pitch. And he says that he didn't want to tell Guardiola because he didn't want him to think that he wasn't mentally there. So terrible as this story is, it actually inspired him to play better football because he didn't want Pep to think there were any weaknesses.
But clearly, but it's still unique for, you know, all footballers, everyone in work, whoever might have, you know, issues, personal issues, and it can be very difficult to separate, as we've seen in sport. But on this occasion, for him to not only do that, but actually play brilliantly, consistently, and to lead so well as well, I think is a pretty unique situation. I can't remember this happening before.
But he sort of says the 90 minutes, 100 minutes of the pitch was his release. He sort of got away from it all. And even with England, he says that Gareth Southgate texted him while it was all going on to offer his support. He doesn't say what the text said exactly, but that too is remarkable when we think there was a period when Southgate had lost faith in him and actually left him out of the England team for quite a while, and we thought his career might be over.
We did. You know, he was out of the England squad for 10 months, and you know, from 2019 through to 2020, and then when he did come back against Iceland, he got sent off. And funny enough, it was his comeback in Iceland, where it was a couple of his teammates, Phil Foden and Mason Greenwood, who were doing stuff off the pitch. And since then, he's just got better for England, and at the World Cup, as we've seen in the interview where he's spoken at length and given the timeline. You know, a lot of the stuff was happening, you know, just before the World Cup. So he's been able to, you know, which was, you know, World Cup in November in 2022 in Qatar. So he's been able to, you know, shut that out and deliver some really good performances for England in what actually was a really decent, you know, tournament, other than the fact that he lost in the quarters.
He does talk about the possibility that he could have gone to Bayern Munich because he wanted to escape all the furor that he knew was coming up here. And he says, did I want to leave City? No, of course I didn't. They're the best team in the world. But it was a chance to get away from England and the media I was going to get. I was aware the clock was ticking. We were having conversations. I was going to go to a great club, a massive club, but in the end I couldn't go. He says because, of course, his kids would have been in England and they wouldn't have been close to him and he might have been left on his own in Germany. And the fact is, though, he could have ended up with Harry Kane at Bayern Munich and Eric Dyer and playing for another top club and maybe helping them to win the Champions League. And that would have been to Manchester City's detriment because he fully justifies his place in the team. In fact, he was one of the key players in the team. Even though at one point, I think, Guardiola was thinking of easing him out as well. And again, he proved how vital he was to the team.
And at 33, that's the thing. You mentioned earlier about his speed. He's certainly not getting any slower. Sometimes I think he's actually getting quicker. That move to Bayern, I think, would have been a mistake because obviously Harry Kane's got his family over. Eric Dyer's going to do the same. At the moment, Bayern Munich just seem to be on the mission to sort of create a Tottenham old boys club there, don't they? And Kyle Walker would have done very well, for the club. But I think that'd have been even though he's been able to separate everything, I think this would have been a real test for him, being away from his family with that sort of distance. So I can see why he thought about it. I can see why he made the decision to stay in England, definitely the correct one, despite obviously all the issues going on behind the scenes.
You only have to watch the video. You may have your opinions on Kyle Walker, but you only have to watch the video on the Sun website to see how much he knows he's messed up and that it does pain him and that it is affecting him. So, as you say, all the more remarkable that he's playing football well. But I don't know how you go forward from here, still playing football well with all this turmoil going on. Somewhere along the line, it must affect you.
I think it probably will eventually in terms of mentally or even physically, maybe in a couple of years' time. Maybe he'll suddenly, hit a wall. But at the moment, England have got a big tournament this summer in Germany. At the moment, he's, without doubt, one of the first names on the team sheet. As you mentioned earlier, one of the England captains as well, as and when Harry Kane doesn't play. So at the moment, he's just proving to be a pretty unique character. And if there is any dip, it will become clear because his standards are so high. But at the moment, Pep Guardiola and Gareth Southgate will be pretty happy with him on the pitch.
What's interesting, you talk about him, going ahead to a tournament. He talks about City and the Champions League, and he's asked whether he regrets not telling Annie about Lauren Goodman, the second child he was having with Lauren Goodman, ahead of the Champions League final. And he says yes and no. He actually says, I knew I should have done it because Annie's my best friend and she deserved to know. But at the same time, it meant my family was there at the Champions League to see me win that trophy, and it's something he cherishes. We never really account for all these sort of things that are going through somebody's mind when they've messed up quite like this.
Yeah, look, I can. Yeah, it's very difficult to. Yeah, certainly for most of us to put ourselves in his position. I can see why he's made that decision. I really can. And equally, I'm sure. Well, he's admitted there's things he'd have done differently. But I can see where he's coming from in terms of wanting his kids to see him, to win the treble, because that's it's not going to happen again. However good Manchester City will continue to be, they're not going to win the treble again. But equally looking back, I think there's probably more than one thing he'd want to do differently, I think.
And you can read all about Kyle Walker and his confessions online, in print, and see the video on our website.